Please welcome this year's keynote speaker, Ari Shapiro.
Thank you, and good morning, President Williams, Provost Masakian, honorees, faculty, staff, family and friends, and most of all, graduates of the Rhode Island School of Design. Doesn't it feel good to wear that title? Will everybody say it with me? Hello, graduates. Hello, graduates. Look, that title feels good for any graduate of any school in any year, but especially for you all, the class of 2023, because you have been through pandemics, street protests, variants of the pandemic, and you made it. And you know the dream you had where you realized you had registered for a class that you had never actually attended, and now it was the day the final project was due, and you hadn't shown up or done any work on it at all? Well, good news. It was just a dream. It didn't happen. You made it. That's the good news. The bad news is you won't stop having that dream. I graduated from college more than 20 years ago. I still have that nightmare. I wake up from it in a cold sweat. I'm sorry. I should tell you, I'm a journalist. In this commencement address, I'm not going to pander to you. I'm going to tell you how things are, even if they may not be exactly what you want to hear. Just in case there was any ambiguity, I'm not an architect. But there's a lot today that you should be very happy to hear. I mean, in this moment, you can look at the person next to you and you can say, we did it. And I don't just mean the students. I mean the parents and siblings and friends and teachers and caregivers and loved ones, because, and faculty and staff. It takes a village to put a student through college. Will you all give yourselves that privilege right now? Turn to someone next to you and just say, we did it. You did it. So, you know, like a day as momentous as this one has two sides. You might feel right now like you're on top of the world, which in a way you are. And also right now you might slightly feel like you're staring into the abyss, which also in a way you are. Every one of us faces the challenge of holding two contradictory ideas in our mind at once. I sometimes say that I'm good at holding two contradictory ideas in my head because I'm a Libra. And I don't believe in astrology. So right now, the first idea we have to embrace is that this is a moment to celebrate, when all the hard work you did paid off. The sacrifices you made, the forks in the road you chose, they have led to a happy ending. And the second idea, if any of you have seen the musical Into the Woods, you're familiar with it, it's that there is no ever after. Every ending is also a beginning. And so our task in this moment is to let those ideas coexist, right? To recognize that there will be hard times ahead without letting that knowledge dampen our real joy, excitement, and enthusiasm at this momentous celebration. I want to give you a snapshot of what this moment looked like for me when I was graduating from college, because I had no idea where I was going next. I was an English major. It was very much a staring into the abyss moment for me. I had never taken a journalism course. I had never written for the school paper. I applied to literally everything I could think of, from the Peace Corps to working at Club Med. I also applied for an NPR internship, and I got rejected for literally everything, including the NPR internship. And I think this is really important to talk about, because it is easy to look at successful people and conclude that their success is the absence of failure, when actually that could not be further from the truth. Success is not the opposite of failure. Success is what follows after repeated failure. Literally every successful person I know has failed along the way, multiple times. And so if there is one thing I want you to remember from what I say today, it is this: failure is a part of the process. NPR's Ari Shapiro was rejected for an NPR internship. Eventually, I found out that the legendary legal affairs correspondent Nina Totenberg hires her own interns. I applied to her, she gave me a chance, and I never left. But after I finished my internship, my career was not exactly smooth sailing. Literally the first time I ever filed a story on deadline for All Things Considered, the show I now host, hours before my story was supposed to be on the air, I deleted all of my audio. Even telling you that right now, all these years later, like, I can feel my face flush, I can feel the panic rising. So my first instinct in that moment was, I'm gonna go get on a train, and I'm gonna take it to the end of the line, wherever it goes, and then I will get off at that last station, and I'll just start walking. And I'll disappear over the horizon, and nobody will ever know what happened to Ari Shapiro. So that was plan A. But I decided to go with plan B. And plan B was confess to my editor what had happened, scramble like crazy to throw something together by my deadline, redoing interviews over the phone, gathering little snippets from YouTube, slapping things together, and just barely getting a story on the air, which frankly was not very good. And that was okay, because then I went on to do another story, and another one after that, and finally, many years after that crisis where I deleted all of my audio hours before my deadline, I became the host of that show that I almost blew up. And so, every one of you graduating today will someday find yourself in a moment of, I just deleted all of my audio and I'm supposed to be on the air in a few hours. Now, it's not going to be deleted audio. It may be a mangled canvas, a deleted file, a pile of rubble where moments before stood something beautiful. And when you face that moment, what I want you to say to yourself is, don't get on the train. You will get through this, because you have been building the skills to get through this, just as you got through the pandemic and the protests and the new variants of the pandemic. I want to share with you some wisdom that I gleaned from the great drag queen philosopher, Dina Martina. Dina once said, there will come a time when you find yourself in a deep, dark valley, and you will think that you will never see the sun again. And in that moment, I just want you to remember that somewhere just out of sight beyond the horizon is a deeper, darker valley. She's a sage, what can I say? So how do we get through those valleys? How do we get through the adversity? This is not a rhetorical question. There's actually really good research on this. I recently interviewed the author of the longest running study of human happiness in the world. His name is Dr. Robert Waldinger. He's a psychologist, and he's head of, it's called the Harvard Study of Adult Development. It's been going on since 1938, and it has basically tracked people like for generations, rich, poor, healthy, unwell, and it has asked what makes people happy. And what's crazy is how simple the answer is. The number one factor that determines whether people feel satisfaction and joy in their lives is the closeness and quality of their relationships with others. Doesn't matter what kind of relationships. It can be friendships, it can be marriage, it can be parent-child. The warmth and quality of your relationships will determine whether you have a happy life or not. So some of you graduating are right now sitting next to your absolute favorite people in the world. You have spent every day with them for years. You know that they will be your best friends forever. As Diana so wisely said, work to hold on to that. Work to sustain your relationships and friendships in the same way that you work to advance your art practice, your career, to build a family, because it doesn't happen automatically. It does take effort, and that effort will pay off over time. Now, others of you might look at the person sitting next to you today and think, I'm not going to miss those people. If you're in that group, I'd like you to raise your hand right now. No, don't raise your hand. Please, don't raise your hand. But whichever group you're in, it's important to go forward with this idea in mind. It is good to invest in your career, in your art, in your passion. Those things can give you a sense of fulfillment and purpose and a paycheck, but it is even more important to invest in your relationships. Because there will be tough times. You know, as a journalist, I often talk to people on the worst day of their lives. I cover wars and natural disasters and mass shootings, and so friends often ask how I stay optimistic, even with all the horrible things that are happening in the world every day. And the answer comes from the people who I've met in those scenarios. Like a guy I met in the coastal Turkish city of Izmir named Ali Demir, who owned this small cafe. I met him at the height of the Syrian refugee crisis, and at the sidewalk tables of his cafe, he had set out these long power strips, and in the windows, he had put up the Wi-Fi code and password, and all of the power strips were full of people charging their phones and FaceTiming or Skyping with their families back home in Syria. And when I asked Ali Demir why he did this, he gave me a very simple answer. He said, I think about if I were in their shoes, what would I want someone to do for me? That act of empathy can be so simple and yet so transformative. The decision to try to see the world through the eyes of someone else can be so powerful and yet such a difficult leap to make. And that's where artists come in. You all have the power to help all of us see the world through different eyes. Particularly in challenging times, the artist has the power to create new realities, new ways of perceiving, to critique and also to make beauty. Through your art, you have the power not only to be free, but to allow others to be free as well, and to show them a different path, free from systems that alienate us from each other and from our world. I want to leave you with a thought from an artist who I quote way more often than I should, who said things like, perfection is for assholes, and dream the culture forward, and use your art to make the world you want to live in, not to critique the world as it. So many things. Okay, the artist is Taylor Mack, who is a writer and performer and was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize for this incredible piece of theater that changed my life called A 24-Decade History of Popular Music. And this piece told the story of the United States from 1776 to 2016, the year that Taylor first performed this epic over the course of 24 hours. Every hour was a decade. And so when I was talking to Taylor about this work, I said, look, when you create the story of the country as one uninterrupted narrative, from slavery to the Trail of Tears to Japanese internment camps and on and on and on, and you see all of these episodes, what perspective does that give you? And Taylor said to me, these things go in cycles, and I don't know why, but they do. But as you tell these stories of hardship and adversity, you also find stories of people trying to make life better for those around them. And all that any of us can ever hope for is to be one of those people in whatever time and whatever place we find ourselves. RISD class of 2023, I hope that each and every one of you will be one of those people. Congratulations. I cannot wait to see how you change the world.